Joey, I want to ask you about the spousal privilege and where does that fit into a deposition for a criminal case? And the other, just briefly, I just wanted to say, in my very humble opinion, I think that DAs and judges should not be elected. Defense attorneys are not elected. Jurors are not elected. And I don't know if that would ever change, but I just don't think they should be elected because I really believe that a lot of decisions that are made is because of, I better do this because I want to win the next election, and I just can't stand that. But anyway, that's all regarding that.
Three things. The first thing is, Jordan, Sarah is an absolute gem of an individual. If anybody knows Sarah, she's just a tremendous person, and so I'm grateful she called. I'm grateful to answer her questions. And
thank you, Joey. You're so sweet. Thank you.
It's the reality. I mean, if everyone was like you, there would be no defense attorneys because no one would do anything wrong. So, so Sarah, we appreciate you, and just continue to be the good person that you are because the world needs you. That's number one.
Thank you.
It's you're more than welcome. Number two, on the issue of Camille Cosby and marital privilege, that's a very significant issue, and I'm glad you raised it. The fact is that a marital privilege, so that everybody understands, protects the communications between spouses, with the theory being if you can't tell your wife anything and the wife can't tell their husband anything, who can you tell anything to? And so the fact is that Miss Cosby, Camille, has been ordered to do a deposition by a federal judge, and that federal judge has ordered her to sit down and be forced to answer questions regarding things that she may know about her husband. Now,
I think she saw, maybe.
Yeah,
it wasn't communicated, but things that she observed?
Correct. Now, here's the problem with that, though. The problem is that, no wife should be put in a position to testify against her husband regarding anything, regarding things she saw, regarding things she's learned, regarding things she might know, because the marital privilege is about protecting the sanctity of marriage. And so I get that everyone wants Cosby's head on a stick. They think he's a serial adulterer, that he's a bad guy, that he's not Cliff Huxtable, that, he should go to jail for his life tomorrow. But there has to be some respect, I think, given to what the laws are. And the law essentially to protect the sanctity of the relationship says you shouldn't have to testify. Now, how did the federal judge get around it? The federal judge in that case rendered a 12-page opinion essentially saying that marital privilege may relate to trial testimony, but remember, a deposition is merely discovery, which is attempting to get information which may or may not be admissible to trial. So therefore, while the marital privilege is applicable, since we're only at the discovery phase and she's testifying about things that may or may not be admissible, you're allowed to ask her about that. Well, Cosby's team says, well, wait a second, that's ridiculous. We should be able to protect her completely. And as a result of protecting completely, we want you, Judge, to stay her deposition, not allow her to be deposed until we go to another court to find this out. And I'm one that's hopeful that another judge looks at this and throws it away. Now, the other thing they were able to do, Sarah, is look and say, well, Camille Cosby was also his business partner. So to the extent that she was his business partner, we believe that, you know what, she may have information relative to her position as a business partner and not his spouse that might be relevant. So what are we going to do? Have people in the future say to their wives, I don't want you to be my publicist. I don't want you to be my business partner. I don't want you to be my accountant, because somewhere down the line, some judge may say the lines are blurred between our relationship as spouse and our business relationship, so you may be forced to testify. I think it split hairs too much, and I think that if Cosby is going to be held accountable, he should be, but I think it should be in the absence of Camille. She's not a party to this litigation. She didn't do anything wrong. She's simply married to Bill Cosby, and she may know things, but if we're going to protect the privilege, we should protect it. So I think, the judge's decision should be reevaluated, and I think an appellate court should weigh in on that. But I'm one who believes that she should be left out of it. Spouses should be left alone, and that relationship should be protected. To your third issue, as far as elected DAs, the problem is that, the DA is going to be beholden to someone. And so if the DA was appointed by the governor, the argument would be that the DA would do whatever the governor wanted him to do or her to do. if the DA were appointed by the Attorney General, the argument would be that the DA is going to find whatever the Attorney General wants him or her to find. So the issue about elected DAs is, hey, if you work for the people, you do what the people want you to do. And that goes back to our earlier discussion in terms of the Deal, who's now the DA, who's going after Cosby. He used Cosby as an election issue. He was elected, so apparently he's of the view that the people want him to go after Cosby, and he feels that he now has carte blanche to go after Cosby because he made it an election issue. They elected him, and so I'm charging Cosby. And so I think that we're going to continue to see elected DAs across the country, and they're going to continue to do what they do. Now, I think a big issue, Sarah, is going to be the issue of special prosecutor, and at what point when a DA investigates certain cases, should there be a special prosecutor so that there's not any particular influence from the DA and that there's an outside independent source who investigates the case. And I think that's going to be a big issue, particularly not so much as it relates to Cosby's case, but as it relates to, for example, police shootings and issues involving the police department, et cetera, because it's hard to work with the police department and then investigate the police department when there's a police shooting that they engage in. So I think we'll continue to see the issue of special prosecutors looked at, who are not elected, by the way, who are appointed. But I think as a practical matter, in terms of prosecuting crimes, we're going to continue to see elected DAs across the country. And I'm grateful that Sarah called in, so thank you.
Thanks for the call, Sarah. Let's go out to Memphis and say hello to Wanda. Wanda, you're live on with Joey Jackson on King Jordan Radio. Question or thought?
Hey.
Hello, person. Is this the Wanda? The one and only Wanda?
Yes, the Wanda. Hey, Joey.
How are you, Wanda? How you doing? So nice to talk to you.
I'm doing good. I'm doing so good. How are you doing?
Fabulous. Couldn't be any better now that I'm talking to you. How about that?
I'm just having a time. Okay, first of all, you guys should have picked me first because Sarah, like Joey says, she's a defense attorney, and Joey is not just on fire tonight, he's in flames because he's answered all my questions. And Sarah asked my question. So let me get to what I've got here. Let's see. Okay.
Well, then I find this, Wanda, to be a double bonus because I get to talk to you without answering any of your questions, and I get to say hello to you.
Nice.
So how's that?
Well, we can just sit and chat. Okay. No, really. Okay. There's one thing on Cosby that it gets to me, and she has nothing to gain. She's got, and it's Beverly Johnson. She's very well respected, supermodel. When she came out and talked about this, she don't need any money, and she's a really, really great supermodel, and she's always been very well respected. Well, now Janice Dickinson, maybe kind of a loose cannon type, but Beverly kind of sealed this for me, so I'm just confused. It may be true on these other ones. I just don't know. But anyway, that's my take on that. I really don't know what's going to happen because you guys already, I'm already learning y'all's talk. I said you guys. We say y'all. So I already learned y'all's versions of it. And now let's get to Freddie Gray. Okay.
Well, let me first address the Cosby issue, Juan, because it's very important, and it's what I talked about with the King before, and that's this reality. The fact is that in the Andrea Conson prosecution, and I know that there are civil suits regarding defamation, by 7 individual plaintiffs who allege that Cosby, through his representatives, called them liars and defamed them, and the Cosby's countersuing about that. But I think what's going to be critical in the Cosby case, as I mentioned earlier, is going to be to what extent will the judge allow prior victims of Cosby's alleged assaults to testify in his criminal case. Because if they do, like you, for example, as a juror, you may say, okay, look, Janice Dickinson, you don't really believe she's that credible. But you know what, Beverly Johnson, she's credible. And so I think if the judge starts allowing prior victims of Cosby, alleged victims, to testify in his criminal case, it can really, really inure to the benefit of the prosecution, because if the people in the jury believe he did those other things, what, of course, are they going to believe? That he did that to Andrea Constant. And so this brings us full circle, and I'm glad you asked the question about what Jordan and I were talking about earlier, which is, what is the judge's ruling going to be? Will he allow prior victims to testify, or will he bar their testimony? And I think that's going to have a lot to do with whether he's convicted, Cosby is, or whether he's acquitted.
Thank you, Joey, and I'm so glad you agreed with me on Beverly Johnson, because she's very credible. She really is, in my opinion. I just think she has nothing to lose, and she don't need his money. Okay. Okay.
Cool. Anything else?
Go ahead.
Is there anything else, Wanda?
Yes,
is there anything else?
I just wanted to say one thing. On Freddie Gray, this is tragic on him, and I just think it's tragic on these officers. It was all put together so fast, so I don't know what's going to happen. I'll just have to wait and see. But, Joey, are these officers in jail, or are they on house arrest?
No, they're out. They made bail, and they have to abide by strict conditions of, their bail. But they're absolutely out. They're able to do what they need to do. The only officer, or not only, but one of the officers that is on house arrest, however, is an officer, Slager, who you might remember shot Walter Scott. He actually is charged with murder. His case is pending in South Carolina. He was recently released on bail, I believe, earlier this week, and the judge said that he needed to be on house arrest. He's facing a murder charge. But the officers of Freddie Gray are, out and about. They posted their bail, and they're able to do whatever they need to do, not only in the confines of their home, but as long as they, abide by the conditions of their bail, which is basically to come to court when they need to, then they'll be okay.
Okay, let's say hello to our final caller. Let's go up to Virginia. Wainwright. Mary, good evening. You're live on King George Radio with Joey Jackson, defense attorney. Question or thought?
Hi, Jordan, and warm hello to you, and warm hello to Joey.
Where do you get these fabulous callers? King, I don't understand how
you
line up. My favorite people get lined up to speak
we
to
love
me.
You. Yes.
The fix has to be in, Mary. The fix is in. I mean, all my favorite people I get to talk to. We have to do this every other night.
I know. Well, no, we don't get to talk that often.
We have to make T-shirts.
We have to do this every other night. I get to talk to my favorite people while I'm talking to you. This is outrageous.
Well, I have a question on the Cosby case.
Sure.
I thought that there was a statute of limitations for criminal cases that were longer than 7 years. Why is that the Constance case is eligible or is now filed criminally when it's been more than 7 years?
Mary, it's a wonderful question, and the answer
is
as follows. Every jurisdiction has their own rules and their own laws concerning various offenses. And what has happened as a general matter, and of course we know that, there are various states across the country, 50 states, and every state has a governor and legislature, and they can legislate their own rules regarding sex abuse cases and other cases. But there's been a movement underway across the country to extend statute of limitations, particularly in cases involving sexual assault, particularly in cases involving sexual assaults of, women who potentially were younger at the time, et cetera, because the psychology behind it is that a lot of times women will not report right away for a variety of reasons.
Right.
One could be based on shame. They feel it was their fault, although it was not. They suppress the memory because they don't want to think about it, or they just don't want to deal with it. And so a lot of states are mindful of protecting women in that regard and not allowing for their claims to be foreclosed or their claims to be, gone forever simply because they didn't report immediately. And so statute of limitations when it comes to issues of sexual assault, sexual abuse, as you'll find in various jurisdictions, are extended. beyond the normal statutory period. For example, in New York, in felonies, it's generally 5 years. But when it comes to sexual crimes and other things in various jurisdictions,